Thank you, Madam President, for recognizing me. As I put forth this amendment, I'd just like to mention to those members on the other side of the aisle who are not in the room today for the obvious reasons, but who are watching, that the contents of this amendment is actually a bill. It's a piece of legislation. It's a piece of reform legislation. In the Senate, it's S-01521. In the Assembly, it's A-1705, and it's bipartisan. It's sponsored by Republicans, and it's sponsored by Democrats, because we're all one when it comes to public safety. The bill for reform that is before you right now relates to reforming an agenda that has failed miserably over the last 3 years, that has emanated from the other side of the aisle. And that's just a fact. It can't be refuted. It can't be refuted because as I pick up these articles from, well, locally it's the Times-Union, it's the Gazette, there's the Democratic Chronicle. 319,000 New Yorkers walked out of the state of New York in this past census year. Voted with their feet. New York, of the 50 states in the nation, was #1 in out-migration, irrefutable, at the bottom of the list in population growth. You don't have an agenda that's working for the people of your state when year after year after year, and as the Time-Union says this time around, from July 20th to July 2021, New York's population fell by 319,000 people, the largest numeric decline of any state in the country, according to the Census Bureau estimates. Now, there's a lot of parts of why your agenda has failed over the last 3 years, and I imagine it's going to continue to fail. But this addresses, this amendment, the most important failure that's taken place. I don't know about the calls you're getting in your office or what you're seeing on your social websites. People are afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to walk the streets. They're certainly afraid to visit the big city of New York City. They're afraid to go to the grocery store. And it's not the pandemic, and it's not the weather in New York. This has been happening before the pandemic ever took place, this exodus. And you know what? There was a deep dive just before the pandemic, looking at why we were #1 in out-migration in around 2019. 15% of the population, #1 in out-migration, who left, you know where they went? New Jersey. My colleagues in the citizenry watching, New Jersey's not exactly the sunny, balmy place in the Northeast. Nobody's, well, I shouldn't say nobody. The reason why they're leaving, and the most important part of this reform, relates to why everything else pales in its sight, and it's public safety. You passed the so-called criminal justice reform cash bail bill. Now, I looked in the dictionary. Reform means to make something better and work more effectively. There's another word which really relates to what you've done. It's deform. You've deformed public safety in New York State. It's a revolving door of danger and disaster. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's a catch and release. It's endangering the very individuals which you made the argument for that we need these reforms. You said individuals in low-income and minority neighborhoods need this because they're being discriminated against. You know who's being discriminated against? The people who are breaking the law from those neighborhoods who judges have to release because you took all discretion away from them. Unfortunately, there are high levels of crime in neighborhoods with minorities and low-income individuals. And they're going back to those neighborhoods and innocent, honest, law-abiding citizens, which you said you were going to protect and make justice be equal because of this reform you've put forth. Now, the way it happened is you went behind closed doors, you went in secret, law enforcement, the judiciary, our district attorneys, you gave them lip service, the professionals. I got a question for you. I got a question for the other side of the aisle as I present this amendment. The one voice from one political affiliation, from one region of the state, that's you, who control the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor's office. I want to ask you this question. 319,000 people left the state. When enough people leave the state of New York, go to that U-Haul, who happens to be doing very well as a business, one of the top businesses now because they're really using those U-Hauls. When those people, enough of them, go to U-Haul, pack up those trucks, and leave the state of New York, who is going to pay for her $212 billion budget, the infrastructure, education, health care, the disabled, the mental health needs that we have, all the programs built into that? You know who's going to be left? You know what the statistics show? We have a large increase percentage of seniors in New York State, and we're lower expectations for births. Why? Because young people and their families are leaving the state of New York. Young people and their families are not coming to the state of New York because you're not incentivizing them to come. I want to ask you, how are you going to pay for all those services when year after year we're number one in out-migration? Now let's look what happened in regards to that. It's not only that they've left. We're one of 7 states because of that out-migration who lost another representative in Washington. I hear on this floor many times, why don't we bring home the bacon? Why aren't our congressmen bringing home money? Why? Well, we're losing representation because we're losing population, because people are voting with their feet. They're afraid. It's the top issue. Everything pales when you neglect public safety. We're behind Florida now. We were number 3 in population. We're number 4 now. Add to that this. I think my colleagues understand what this is, but maybe the viewers don't understand when I say this. We are number 1 in Tax Freedom Day in New York State. Number 1. Add to this, all the population. We're number 1 in Tax Freedom Day. You know what Tax Freedom Day is? It's the middle of May for anybody and everybody who works in New York State, who actually takes $1 home to pay their mortgage, pay their car payments, pay their tuition, put food on their table. January, February, March, April, May. That's 5 months of socialization. 5 months of the state of New York taking their tax dollars before they let them take one tax dollar home. I don't think that's a good record. That might have something to do with U-Haul doing so well and people walking out of the state of New York. Look, if this continues, if your agenda continues, if you don't make it safer and don't support this amendment to do it, and I'll explain it, it's pretty simple right now. We're not going to be the Empire State. We are moving towards the empty state. People are leaving in groves. It's not I love New York anymore. It's I leave New York or I left New York. We do love New York. We want it to be a better place. But the agenda has to change. Now, Governor Hochul, I'm not the only one that mentioned 319,000 people leaving the state. She mentioned it in her State of the State message. She also touched public safety, but she really didn't give you an answer. I'm going to give you an answer. Give discretion back to judges. Give discretion back to judges. Give discretion back to judges to consider the individuals before them being a danger to themselves or others in their community. Do I say give back the discretion they had before? Look, I know the audience I'm talking to. I know you're never going to support that. But this makes eminent common sense. And let me tell you the 3 areas that it deals with. Under the present circumstances, someone breaks the law. Now, you've got a whole bunch of crimes now which you classify as not violent. You know, home break-ins, burglaries, carjackings, okay, you've done that. But if somebody comes before a judge, and we allow the judge, this is one of the areas to give them discretion, is able to look in that person's background, and they have a serious felony, not arrest, an arrest, a conviction, and paid a penalty. For a serious violent felony, the judge should have the ability to consider whether they're a danger to themselves or others and confine them, cash bail, get them off the streets. Two other areas, this bill would give them the opportunity to have consideration if they're a danger to themselves or others. You know, we're giving them one bite at the apple. They're coming before the judge's hands are tied, they're released. 3,500 individuals just over last year recommitted serious crimes. 3,500. Now, it's many more because our law enforcement individuals can only catch maybe 50, 60, 70% of those who break the law. So it's above 3,500. As the good Senator Ort, our leader, says, you guys have the habit of saying, if it impacts one person's life, this impacted 3,500 individuals' lives and their families. And of course, above that, because there's a lot more people who broke the law that they probably didn't catch. This bill says, this reform, if we give you a bite at the apple, we give you a ticket, we let you go, no cash bail, you have a timetable to show up, and you break the law again, why should not the judge have a discretion in that particular case to say, we gave you a chance, look at the case, consider whether they're a danger to themselves or others, and say, cash bail, we're going to confine you. The third case is this. We've let people go. Thanks for the applause, Lance. We've let people go. And what have they done? They have run. Now, here's what's happening. Our law enforcement officials who arrested these people, who are limited in case, and don't forget about the fact that you want to unfund the police. Oh, don't tell me you didn't mean it. You broke it. It's yours now, okay? You want to diminish the men and women out there, but yet you release these people where they have to chase the individuals they arrested once and are breaking the law again, and then you have to chase them because they're running, because they know if they run, many times when they come back, they're released again. In cases where you've given them that responsibility to come and they run, why shouldn't the judge have the opportunity to consider the fact that you'll be a danger to yourself or a danger to others? In those three limited areas, if I had my druthers, would I repeal and bring the professionals in? Listen, I'm not against criminal justice reform. I think it's a good idea to do the best we can for our victims and to be fair to those who are alleged predators and criminals. But this is not working. You can't deny it. 3,500 individuals recommitted crimes. People are afraid to walk the streets. I'm sure they're calling your office like they're calling my office. Madam President and my colleagues, if you've got a better idea to this, to reform it, I'd love to vote for it. But as it is right now, it's failing miserably. I move the amendment and I ask for your consideration. Thank you so much.